Well, hello, I'm Joanna with Blissful Baby Sleep Coaching, and I am here with Myra, um, who is going to share her success story with her 7-month-old baby boy that we did some coaching with. Hi, Myra, how are you?
I'm doing well, Joanna. Thanks for having me.
Okay, great. So, the first question I always like to ask families is, what was life like before they called me? But what's great about Myra's story is this is the second time we've worked together. So maybe you can go back and talk about kind of your first experience and how old your child was, and then what brought you with to me again for the second child.
Yeah, so the first time that you and I met to discuss sleep coaching was when my first son was 18 months old. And at the time, we had just moved to a new city, a new house, a new daycare. And at 18 months, my son had not slept through the night except for maybe a couple of times. And we were kind of at our wits' end with, you know, our our patience with each other. My husband and I, we were, struggling with meal prepping because we were so tired all the time. So we were just getting takeout. Our house was a mess. We were having trouble concentrating at work because we weren't getting good sleep at night.
Hmm.
Um, our son, it felt like, was having behavioral issues because he wasn't getting sleep at night.
Hmm.
All around, everybody was just extremely grumpy. Um, and so we were fortunate enough that a friend told us about a sleep coach, and luckily that sleep coach was you. And
Okay.
that's where we started our journey. We were just so desperate for help at that point that we were willing to try anything. And I'm so glad that it led us to you.
Yes. And he was a tricky case. And
Yes.
we worked our way through, and then, we're all like, "Woohoo, we did it," right? And then you guys, went on your merry way, and then out of the blue, you called me and you said, "Guess what? We got a new baby." I'm
Mhm.
like, "All right, let's talk." And so why don't you talk about what made you decide to call for the second baby?
So we called you when our second baby was 5 months old, and we had already gone through the process of sleep coaching our first son, and our first son was extremely challenging.
Mhm,
Luckily, our second baby was much more calm, but still had issues sleeping through the night and taking naps during the day. So, because we already knew that the process had worked before, we called you at 5 months um, to, get the process started with him again, because
mhm,
we know that it creates a domino effect. When one kid doesn't sleep, he will keep the other child up no matter how sleep trained he is. So we knew we had to
mhm.
get our second son um, training. And at the time, you advised us that it was too early for him to go through the sleep training process. So we waited a couple more months. And then at 7 months is when we started the sleep coaching process with our second baby. And
Yeah, exactly. And I think what she said there is so important because, most people are always in a rush. Like, I got to sleep train my baby. The younger, the better. And for me, as a sleep coach and a gentle sleep coach, I always think that monitoring the child's readiness to have the capacity and the mobility to learn their sleep skills is really important. So you would think at 5 months, like, oh, surely he would be ready to sleep train. But there was some points of readiness that we were still that I like to see already. And he wasn't quite there yet. And he had just gotten a helmet. And so we had some things to work on there because he was overheating a lot. And we didn't understand if he was waking up in the middle of the night because he was overheating or if he was waking up in the night because of really choppy sleep cycles. So instead of rushing in, even though Myra and her husband knew like this is going to work, like we know we're in good hands, we all decided simultaneously to just honor the readiness of the child. And then you guys were working on some stuff while we were getting the helmet situation ready and let him work on some of his rolling exercises. And then by 7 months, he was ready. And I just think it's so important because, I don't like to force solutions on babies because
Mhm.
it's not fair to the baby. It's not fair to the parent. And the learning process goes so much better when the readiness is like juicy, you
Yeah.
know?
Mhm.
And so what's it been like for you, now that you've gone through the sleep coaching process twice? and with two very different aged children, an 18-month-old and then a 7-month-old. What have you enjoyed about the sleep coaching process with me?
Well, I think one of the most helpful things about working with you, Joanna, is that we always we always have a tailored plan
Mhm,
for each session that we walk away from. We know exactly what to do, and then we know what to look out for in terms of what's working and what's not. And
yep,
we bring that to our next session, and then we further tailor the plan or customize the plan
mhm,
that we can get closer to the end goal, which is to get the child to sleep at night, without any sleep crutches, or nap during the day without any sleep crutches. So
mhm,
I think the tailored plan was really helpful. And then also your ability to work with kids of different ages, because when we
mhm,
first started with our first child, he was 18 months at the time. And now with our second child, we started when he was 7 months. And you were able to understand exactly where they were in their development, so that
mhm,
the sleep plan was tailored to their sleep development stages, and then being able to create a tailored plan not only based on their child's personality but also based on their child's age and their child's milestones.
mhm.
And I also appreciated that you didn't gloss over important topics such as postpartum depression, because that is
Oh,
such
yeah.
such a big uh you know burden that moms in particular deal with when they're going through the sleep coaching process, or just in general after having had a child.
Mhm,
I appreciated that you didn't just gloss over the topic when I brought it up, that you actually talked about, how that affects me as a sleep coach, and, how to help, mitigate some of those issues that I was dealing with. And part of that was the sleep coaching uh, process that was able to get me out of the dark nursery where I was
yes.
giving in-arm snaps to my son, and that was contributing to my depression symptoms. So
Mhm.
I was really appreciative of that.
Yeah, and thank you for sharing that, Myra, because, it's true that, a mom that is, suffering from what they call postpartum mood disorders. So there can be postpartum depression and there can also be postpartum anxiety. And believe it or not, they're two very different experiences. Postpartum anxiety can feel and look very different than postpartum depression. And often if a mom is sleep deprived, if she has had experiences with the postpartum depression or the postpartum anxiety, those two things will be massively exasperated by lack of sleep. So then you've got this big combination of you've got a family that's exhausted and overwhelmed, and then you have a mom who's already at her complete capacity because of a medical condition, which is what postpartum mood disorders are, a medical condition. And so, one of my goals in working with a family is to take away the stigma of your felt experience, which is I am having a felt experience in my body and in my heart, in my mind, in my body, how my brain is like thinking about my life right now. I feel miserable. And it was
Mhm.
like we had to create a sleep plan where we didn't move too fast because that would have created more overwhelm. We had to take into consideration, yeah, that this baby only wanted to be held in arms in the dark for both nights and naps. And it was like that was way too much physical effort on mom and too much time in the dark room and too much physical effort doing it. And it was like, okay, this is not good for her. Like we need to so we had to piece apart a whole bunch of parts to create circumstances where the learning can happen with the baby, but also honoring where mom was emotionally and physically. Because again, like a recommendation is only good as your capacity to follow through with it. And we had to consider where you were with your postpartum depression and anxiety journey. And luckily, Myra's one of the lucky ones. She found right off the bat a really great therapist and has continued work with them, which is amazing. Um, so for those of you that are struggling, Myra, do you have anything you want to say about getting the support, like getting the therapist and getting the sleep, how that's helped you?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely feel so much less overwhelmed because I know that when my son is able to nap on his own hands free, that I can have some time to myself, which is not something that I, you know, had before the process of sleep coaching. Being able to have some time to rest or some time to decompress after he goes to bed on
Yep.
his own at night is such a huge difference. Like I can have a quiet dinner,
Mm.
go to bed early and
Hmm.
take a shower and have some me time. And
I don't take a shower. I mean, who would have thought? Like just a little me time, a little shower, just some time to actually eat food instead of inhaling it. Yeah. Or
yes,
not eating at all and being starving and dehydrated. Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
Like there was there's just so much deprivation I feel like that happens that I don't think a lot of moms expect, where you're sitting in a dark nursery for hours on end doing a nap, and you have to go to the bathroom, you have to
Uh-huh.
or you need a nap, you're thirsty, you're hungry, but you can't do any of that because you're stuck in the room. And
Right.
um getting
And
that.
then your brain goes, and now you're like angry, now you're resentful, now you're agitated, which
Yeah,
then brings on more overwhelm, which then brings on the depression, which then brings on more agitation. Like it just is like, and the mommy brain, our brains are very active, even when we're sitting in a dark room. That's actually when they're probably the most dangerous to be living inside of.
yes.
Yeah.
So all
It's
of
not
that.
peaceful in there. It's not peaceful.
Oh no, it's a quiet room, but it's
A
a
very loud.
loud, So
Yeah, what do
luckily,
they say? They say that the mind is like the neighborhood you were never supposed to go into, like, or something funny like that. Like,
it's the worst hood,
yeah, yeah, the bad hood. Yeah, the
Yeah,
bad part of town.
yeah,
Yeah. So that's amazing. Yeah. So what I hear you saying is like just having that customization and to put things in small little bits and pieces for you so that you could put it together and feel successful because you were already feeling so overwhelmed and so like miserably unsuccessful in every other part of your life. You're like, I just need a little taste of success,
yeah.
so I can build myself up. So what does life look like now? Like, is he it used to be in a dark room day and night with everything in arms. What does it look like now?
So now I'm able to have hands-free naps, and at this point in time, he's taking two hands-free naps a day. So I already know that that's some me time that I have to look forward to every
Mhm.
day, twice a day. In the evenings, he goes to bed, by 6 o'clock, and then I have the entire rest of the evening to myself. Um,
Good.
which is amazing. He puts himself to sleep. He goes into the crib, drowsy but awake, and he puts himself to sleep. Um, I'm able to have some time in the evenings to attend my therapy appointments, which just helps me kind of work through any issues that I'm having at the time, and just helping me decompress and just feel better about things. Um, and I think one of the biggest things that is is possible for me to do now is I was able to take a trip for a work conference that I never would have been able to take prior to sleep coaching, because now my husband is able to put both of our sons down for bedtime and for nap times, and he knows exactly what routine to follow. We were
Mm.
even able to bring in our nanny to help fill in for me and re redo the routine that I typically do on a day-to-day basis and just adapt it. And our son responded to her just as well as he responds to me, and that's been amazing. So having the time to myself to be able to not only take a trip and know that the kids are perfectly able to adapt to the sleep, um, the sleep coach, whoever it is that night, whether it's me
Mhm.
or my husband or the nanny.
Mhm.
And then because I'm able to sleep at night, you know, through the night, I can actually concentrate on, work and work conferences and networking. And it doesn't feel so overwhelming because, I'm actually well rested.
Amazing. Totally amazing. So, yeah, so think about this, you guys, right? So, never in a million years would she have ever thought, oh, gee, I think I want to go on a 3-day conference that requires me to get on an airplane and attend seminars all day and be networking and out and about in the world, knowing that she wants to get a new job. Never, she was so, Miss Myra was so tired and so overwhelmed and so depleted that that idea, that dream, not it wasn't even it couldn't even been a dream. It wasn't even an idea because the impossibility of it, there was no energy for anything except maybe doing the dishes, right? I mean, and then we go through the sleep coaching process and she's like, "I think I want to get a new job and I think I'm going to go to this conference in Arizona and I'm going to get on an airplane and oh, by the way, when I'm there, I'm going to see some family members and we're going to go out to dinner at these really cool restaurants." I mean, that to me is like proof in the pudding or whatever they say, is that funny saying, because you came off that conference, you were like on a high. You're like, I went, I had a great time. I met all these cool people. I went to these cool restaurants. I totally got to connected with our family members in Arizona. And dad was like, it was great. Everything was fine over here. It was like not a burden. The nanny did a great job. We worked together as a team. It wasn't a burden for me. And it was like the door just blew wide open. It's like, okay, well, now we know we can go somewhere else if we need to, and the nanny can babysit the kids or whatever. I mean, it's just amazing. Totally amazing. So if you were to meet a parent or a mom in particular who maybe was struggling with postpartum depression, or someone who was like afraid to do this, or maybe like a dad that's like, that's not worth the money. We're just going to have to figure it out ourselves. Like, what would you wanna, I mean, you've been through this twice now under 2 very different circumstances. What would
Mhm.
you want people to know?
I mean, I think the first thing that would be important for people to know is that we have done this two different times with two different kids who have very different personalities and temperaments, who are at different developmental stages, different ages, and they each got a tailored plan that
Mm,
is, you know, tailored to them and that works. And
mhm.
that my oldest son, who was 18 months at the time of sleep training, is now 5 years old and he is still sleep trained,
Yep,
you know, 3 years later.
yep.
Um, and we know exactly what to expect in our household with both boys. We have individual time to ourselves. We can have a quiet dinner if we wanted to. We can have, go out on date night if we wanted to.
Mhm, mhm,
Um, we can get a full night's sleep. Um, we can take naps during the day because we know when our kids need to nap during the day.
mhm,
Um, and I would say that they need to go through the entire process, even if they are, you know, not totally convinced that it works, because
mm.
at the end of the process, they will thank themselves and
Oh,
thank
yeah.
you for being able to better, get them and their kids better quality sleep. Because I know that when we went through the process the first time, our lives transformed completely. And it
Mhm,
was like the best investment that we ever made, because when you don't sleep for 18 months straight, your life is just in complete chaos. I think at the
mm.
time we, you know, we weren't, we were even considering leaving our jobs. We were considering
I
moving.
know.
We
Mhm,
were, our marriage was in trouble. Our, our work lives were difficult because we couldn't concentrate due to lack
Mhm.
of sleep. Our nutrition was
Mhm.
poor because we were too tired to cook. Our son had behavioral problems because he wasn't sleeping, and all of that stuff improved after we went through the process of sleep coaching because we had more energy, we had more patience, we
Yes.
were better rested, and we could make decisions rationally
Yes.
without the cloud of exhaustion that we were under.
Oh my gosh.
It was just transformative.
Amazing. Yes, I so remember that now that you guys were like, "I think we need to quit our jobs and, like, move somewhere else." I'm like, "Well, whoa, 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 whoa. Let's get this kid sleeping, and then these big life priorities you can kind of think about in a new lens when everybody's sleeping." And you're
Yeah.
like, "Oh, okay, you know what? You're probably right. That's a good idea." And then later I remember asking like, "So you guys are gonna move?" And you're like, "No." Because we like our house, like, we now can appreciate where we are. We actually like our community. Yeah, so it's so important. Well, thank you so much for sharing your story. As you know, I get to, in this call, officially welcome you to the Well Rested Family Revolution. Well, you've already been part of the exclusive club, but now you're a double winner. So thank you so much for being part of the Well Rested Revolution and for trusting me. And just, being a wonderful parents that put sleep as a priority in your life and in your child's life. It's just amazing. So thank you for sharing your story.
Thank you so much, Joanna, for sharing your talents with us because you changed our lives.
Oh, that's so nice. Thank you, Myra.